Hi, everyone. I'm Nate Smeltz with Turner Sports. On behalf of Turner Sports and our friends at the National Hockey League, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. Earlier today, we announced a new 7-year multimedia rights agreement set to begin with the 2021-22 season, bringing the world's best hockey league to our Turner Networks, Bleacher Report, and the full depth of the Warner Media portfolio. In a moment, we'll be joined by Gary Bettman and Jeff Zucker. If you'd like to ask a question during today's session, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen there. And we'll now take a moment or two just to assemble the question queue. Okay, now please allow me to join me, I should say, in welcoming NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman and Jeff Zucker, Chairman, Warner Media News and Sports. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to turn it over to both for opening remarks. It's my pleasure to first turn it over to NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Jeff and I are here to formally announce the formation of a new partnership between the National Hockey League and Turner Sports. First, I want to thank Jeff for his persistence and his confidence in us and for the vision he has shared with us for this new partnership. We couldn't be more excited. It shows a confidence in us as a sport, as great contact, and it also shows the way that partnership can come together with strategic use of the great assets that Warner Media and in particular Turner Sports have. From our standpoint, we looked at the strength of the Turner Sports portfolio, which is outstanding. They do a great job of covering their other major properties. They put a fun and innovative factor into all of what they do, and we're excited to have that same treatment for our sports and for our fans. We love the reach of their linear networks, both TNT and TBS. And as we look to the future, we're excited about the digital properties and in particular, HBO Max and the Bleacher Report. For us, this is a perfect fit. The excellence that Turner Sports represents with 20, I believe, recent Sports Emmy nominations, the coverage, the platforms. This represents excellence and more hockey in more places. We couldn't be more excited about our moving forward together. This is going to be a great partnership. And with that, Jeff, you have my thank you, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Gary, and good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you are. And I just want to express on behalf of everybody at Turner Sports and Warner Media how thrilled we are and how grateful we are to Gary and his entire team. I've known Gary a long time, dating back to my days at NBC, and I am thrilled to be back in business with Gary and our entire organization. This is a really significant day for us and a significant relationship for us. A couple of points I just wanted to make about it. This really, I think, further underscores our commitment at Turner Sports to premium sports content. It clearly expands our portfolio with yet another premier property and one of the world's most coveted sports leagues. And so I think that this truly gives Turner Sports one of the best portfolios anyone could imagine. We're incredibly excited by the fact that we're going to crown 3 Stanley Cup champions over the length of our deal on TNT. And so that is something that is really, really important to us. And finally, I just want to talk about how important this agreement is with regard to not just today, but also the future. Obviously, this fulfills our strategy to propel all aspects of our business going forward. Linear, and obviously the commitment here to TNT and TBS is paramount, but also digital, especially in the years to come, and social, especially through Bleacher Report and House of Highlights, which are unique in reaching younger viewers, as well as whatever distribution channels of the future materialize. So really linear, digital, and social are such an important component of this, and that's why we're so excited to be here today. So again, a really big day for Turner Sports, and my profound thanks to Gary and his entire team.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Commissioner Bettman. Much appreciated. And for this next portion, the Q&A part of the program, if you will, I'm going to turn over to my NHL partner, John Delapina.
Thanks, Nate. Good to be working with you. Let's get right to the questions. And let's start off with John Oran of the SBJ. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, guys. I have a question for each, one for Gary, one for Jeff. Gary, I think that the question that I've gotten the most over the past month, since you did that I haven't been able to answer, since you did the deal with ESPN and this one with Turner, is about the future of NHL Network and what that's going to look like given these two deals.
That is a good question. We have been focused primarily on concluding our relationship with ESPN and with Turner Sports. We envision in some form continuing the NHL Network. We think it's important for hockey fans, but the specifics of that isn't anything that we've addressed yet. But people should assume, again, that in some form it will continue to exist. How we continue to distribute it, how we produce it, is something that we're now going to focus on.
Thanks. And then a question for Jeff. How long has the NHL rights been on your radar screen? Can you sort of take us through when negotiations really started in earnest for you?
Hey, John, how are you? Look, I think you've asked me many times, rightly so, would we be interested in rights as they come up? And what I've always said outside of the NFL, which just did not make economic sense for us, we were always going to look at premium sports properties as they came up. And obviously with our portfolio that already includes the NBA and MLB and the NCAA tournament, the NHL was something that obviously we've been interested in. We certainly made that clear to the NHL over the last year or so. In terms of when we became much more serious about it, I would say, we've had ongoing conversations for the last several months, and in the last few weeks, it raised to a new level.
Thanks, John. Next question comes from Scott Burnside of The Athletic. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you very much. Gary, I have two questions for you, if I could. First, given this transition, does this change anything vis-a-vis NBC's coverage of the playoffs on their platforms? Will we see every single playoff game as has been the case in the past with NBC?
The answer to that question is absolutely. NBC has reconfirmed that to me, that we should expect no difference in the treatment that we are going to get compared to what we've gotten over the length of our relationship. And despite a lot of speculation to the contrary, we part friends, and we look forward to the future, each of us understanding why we made the decisions that we both made to reach this point.
Great. So as a follow-up then, Gary, if I could, does this change in dynamic change the NHL's approach or view to the Olympics in Beijing, given that NBC is no longer your regular partner during the regular season, although they'll have the Olympics, of course. Does that change at all the potential for the NHL to actually be in Beijing for the 22 Olympics?
I don't think it changes it at all for two reasons. One, there's still a lot of things that have nothing to do with NBC that would have to be resolved before we go to the Olympics in Beijing. And two, if you think back to the last Olympics in South Korea, NBC had those rights and we didn't go. So it's really, one has nothing to do with the other.
Thanks, Scott. Next question comes from Joe Reedy of the Associated Press. Go ahead, Joe.
For Jeff and Gary, has there been any talk on when the regular season games will air on TNT? I know Wednesday has been very popular in Canada, in the US on NBC, but Jeff, you have a very successful property already on Wednesday nights on TNT.
We do. Thanks for the question, Joe. We haven't made any final decisions on that. Obviously, as I noted with John, this has obviously happened pretty quickly here in the last few weeks. We'll make some programming decisions and scheduling decisions in the weeks to come. We're blessed with a lot of strong properties, and we'll make those programming and scheduling announcements in the weeks to come. There's been no decision made yet.
Thanks, Joe. Next question comes from Andrew Marchand of New York Post. Go ahead, Andrew.
So I have a question for each, for Gary and for Jeff. For Jeff, just can you explain how the component with HBO Max will work in the vision that you guys have for the future?
So let me start by saying that what we're really focused on here, certainly as we begin, are the Turner networks, TNT and TBS, given their full distribution, given the fact that we're going to crown a champion on TNT. What we're excited about is that we do have optionality to put these games on HBO Max as well, and that will happen in the years to come as HBO Max continues to grow and as it becomes a bigger home of these kind of events. But for now, the focus will be on the Turner networks. We want to be where the consumer is and where the consumer is skating to, as it were. And so, we're going to go where the puck is going, and that'll happen over time. And so HBO Max, we have the rights and the ability to put these games there. But in the initial phase, the focus will be on the Turner networks.
Thanks, Andrew. Next question comes from Chris Bumbaka of USA Today. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, this one's for Jeff. Obviously, a lot of success with your NBA property and inside the NBA and things like that. And I know that this came together quickly, so there's no definite answer. But is the thinking that creating a studio show that really, has that kind of, camaraderie and environment and about the game in that way, kind of, the goal there?
Yeah. So, Chris, look, obviously, I think that there's a style to Turner Sports, and there's a approach, and we want to bring that same approach to the NHL here. You can't just copy inside the NBA on Thursday nights. That comes together over time and relationships. We've successfully introduced a new studio show for the NBA on Tuesday nights that has a different feel than our Thursday night show. And so, but we think it's been incredibly successful, and we're incredibly proud of that. We're going to bring that same approach to the NHL. We do want to have a similar style and a similar approach. I have no announcements. I have no host to tell you about at this time. But I think it's the sensibility and the style that we approach our coverage with that we will also bring here. And I think that's been innovative, fun, and dynamic. And I think, again, that's widely recognized with our NBA coverage. And so that's what we want to do with the NHL.
And that's what we're excited about. We're counting on it.
Thanks, Chris. Next question comes from Ryan Kennedy of the Hockey News. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks. Question for Jeff. From a storytelling perspective, what intrigues you about the NHL and the players that make up sort of the star system in the league?
Right. Well, look, I mean, I think you actually hit on it. One of the things that the way that I've grown up in sports production and news production was about storytelling, and that's what I emphasize in my roles here at both Turner Sports and at CNN is tell me a story. I grew up with Dick Ebersol at NBC, and that's what we were always focused on. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what the storylines will necessarily be come next season. I think one of the things we also are focused on is letting those storylines evolve. But I think that you raised the point that that's what I am incredibly focused on as we approach all of our sporting partnerships. Tell me a story, and so we'll bring that same sensibility here.
Thanks, Ryan. Next question comes from Stephen Battaglio of the LA Times. Go ahead, Stephen. I think you're muted, Stephen.
Hi, sorry about that. Two questions for Jeff. Just do we have any type of timetable on streaming on when HBO Max might carry games? And the second question is, you've got a lot of sports now on TNT and TBS, and I'm told that they're not really in the market for any more scripted programming. At some point, do you shift the branding for these channels and sort of tell the consumer that they are now destinations for live sports?
Well, let me actually take those in reverse order, Steve. With regard to TNT and TBS, there's still a very strong lineup of original programming there, and I think that this does not change that in a significant way. Obviously, there is more sports programming, but when you look at 365 days a year and 24 hours a day, there's still a place at TNT and TBS for scripted programming, and that will continue. So I want to be clear about that. With regard to Timetable on HBO Max, look, we're gonna figure that out now. We've obviously got digital rights through our MLB deal. We've got digital rights through now with our NHL deal. And so, as the consumers continue to, as I said earlier, skate to where the puck is and where the world is going, we will be there. And I think what we're excited about in this deal is that we have that flexibility and optionality. But it's not imminent, and it's not going to happen this year. But in this calendar year here, and our emphasis, in the year ahead will certainly be on TNT and TBS, the Turner networks, and in the years to come, I think you'll see HBO Max and those digital platforms be a bigger part. But that's not imminent, Steve.
Thanks, Stephen. Next question comes from Nick Kotsanika of NHL.com. Go ahead, Nick.
Gary, for the viewer, the fan, could you encapsulate the entire sort of media partnership landscape now? It seems to me the big takeaway is more hockey in more places in more ways. And Jeff, you already touched on the studio show, but are there other ways that you can touch on how you can promote the NHL, Bleacher Report, social, other avenues like that?
So to answer your question, I think you said the answer to your question as well as I could. It's more hockey in more places, in more ways. This is extraordinarily fan-friendly. It takes advantage of a strong linear presence on TNT and TBS, as Jeff said. And as we look to the future and a younger demographic, having the Bleacher Report, HBO Max, these are places that we're going to be moving to, and I think that's going to be great for our fans. And so if you're a hockey fan, you've got more national games than ever before. You've got more extensive coverage than ever before. You're going to be able to get as much hockey as you want. And for us, that's exciting. And coupled with what I said in my opening remarks, we love, as Jeff referred to it, a fun and innovative approach to covering sports. And I think that's going to bring more people into our game.
Yeah, and then the only thing that I would add beyond a blueprint of the Inside the NBA studio show in attracting fans and speaking to fans, the other thing that we haven't talked about here that I really want to highlight and point out is that Turner, we've got a real fire hose, as it were, with Bleacher Report and House of Highlights to reach younger viewers in a way that is actually pretty unique in the sports landscape. And so, Bleacher and House of Highlights and their social reach is unparalleled. And so that's something that we're very excited about in this construct.
Thanks, Nick. Next question comes from Stephen Wino, the Associated Press. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, this question's for you, Gary. What does this deal and the NBC deal do for the league and the clubs, just to have this kind of financial security on a long-term deal, especially coming out of a pandemic?
It's good. I'm not going to confirm the amounts, but more seriously, we think the arrangements we have now are much more reflective of the value that we bring as compelling content. And again, as we've been talking about, creating a wider distribution base is only going to continue to grow the sport and help it skew younger. So on all of the basic platforms and all of the basic principles that I was focused on moving forward for our long-term media strategy, I think we've hit all the bases and we've got great partnerships. And that's why we're so excited. I think this bodes well for our fans, for our teams, and for the game of hockey.
Thanks, Steve. Next question comes from Eric Fisher of Sports Business. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, good afternoon. Question for Gary. Just want to sort of follow on Jeff's prior comments about Bleacher Report and House of Highlights. And from your standpoint, what that kind of does to fan development. You've already skewed younger than a lot of other sports properties, but how, beyond just obviously the economics of this deal, how impactful was that particular component in the overall calculus here?
Well, I'm not sure that either of us would be comfortable breaking down how we came to the negotiation and ultimately resolve the asset distribution and the financial distribution. But as we've focused on millennials and Gen Zs, we're focused on doing things that we can to reach them in more ways than maybe anybody else is, and more than we have in the past, even though we tend to skew younger. So this is just consistent with our ongoing strategy to make sure we service our current fans and we develop the next generation of fans. And I think also when you look at our game, the competitive balance we have, which I believe is the best in all the sports, when you look at the pace of play and everything else that our game represents in terms of being so young, and our players in particular now, skillful, fast, edgy, nonstop action, I think we're in a very good place with very good partners.
And I would just add, that we do, as part of this, intend to continue to leverage both Bleacher and House of Highlights, in their, unparalleled ability to create content that both resonates and engages, passionate young sports fans. And so I think that that's a real opportunity here that, may not have been understood.
Thanks, Eric. Next question comes from John Warrow of the Associated Press. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, John. Hi, Gary and Jeff. I got a bit of a two-part question that's a little bit different, but to follow up on Wino's point, Gary, you said this bodes well for hockey fans. When do you kind of project these TV deals, these broadcasting deals, having an effect on the salary cap? And I have a follow-up question as well for both of you.
Well, that's a more complicated question, and as I think those of you who cover hockey know, we have a fairly large escrow to be made up, and until we do, the cap is basically flat. The increase in value obviously is going to shorten the time frame that perhaps many had projected when we did the return to play for last season and extended the collective bargaining agreement. I mean, one of the other things that I'm excited about in this overall context, and I'm sure it gives Jeff and Turner Sports a level of comfort, is, as I think you all know, we extended the collective bargaining agreement as part of the return to play. So we have 6 years of labor peace that we're in the midst of, and the point to which the cap will then kick into the old formula, I think, as a result of our partnerships moving forward, will be sooner than it otherwise would have been.
Thanks for that, Gary. And for both of you, in the discussions with ESPN and Turner, did the World Cup of Hockey tournament, was that brought up at all as part of this, broached as part of these discussions? And how much, was it, Gary, and how much would Jeff, would you be interested in something to that effect for the tournament in September?
Well, actually, that is a good question. To the extent it came up, we were consistently responding that it's nothing we can discuss now because that is a joint property with the Players Association. And to the extent there's a plan to move forward with the next World Cup, to the extent we have to arrange for broadcast of the World Cup, we do that jointly with the Players Association. But obviously, first and foremost, once we get into the position and decide with the players that we're going to move forward, we will talk to our partners.
Thanks, John. We have time for a few more. Next question comes from Jacob Feldman of Sportico. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yes, thank you very much. My question, I guess, for Gary, Jeff, if you want to jump in here as well. Obviously, now your two biggest partners are also the NBA's two biggest TV partners. I'm curious what challenges and opportunities that presents, especially when it comes to scheduling and promotion in the postseason.
We think it will work out great. There's a great opportunity for cross promotion from our partners, and the scheduling, and I'll let Jeff address it, actually will make, I think, all of our lives a bit easier based on the properties that both of our partners have. Jeff?
Yeah, so Jacob, what I would add is I think on one level, we have a terrific relationship with ESPN, and we work really well with them already on the NBA. So I have every reason to believe that continues here. So that, I think, is actually good for everybody. And then secondly, and we already work out scheduling with them on the NBA in terms of playoffs and games there. So I think that actually institutional knowledge between these two companies is a benefit here. And then on a separate note, our ability, I talked about this earlier, to have both TNT and TBS available as fully distributed cable networks, in the heavy months of April, May, and June, I think really gives us an advantage and will make a lot of this easier. And the other thing is, look, we're incredibly excited about this relationship here with the NHL. we obviously, our relationship with the NBA continues to be incredibly important as well. And I know that Adam Silver is incredibly excited for the NHL to be part of this family as well. I've spoken to him, and he has expressed that. So I think everybody feels good about it, and I think just the history bodes very well for this.
Thanks, Jacob. Next question comes from Guillaume Lefrancois of La Presse. Go ahead, Guillaume.
Hi guys, I have a question for one question for Jeff, one for Gary. Just for Jeff, first of all, when preparing a deal like this, how do you assess the national appeal of the NHL? You know, at a nationwide perspective, given the differences between, well, you know, we all know hockey is more popular maybe in certain areas of the country. So how do you assess that from a national point of view?
Yeah. So Guillaume, what I would say on that is, you know, there are only 4 major sports leagues at the most at the highest level in the United States. You know, there are other leagues, and they're all, you know, they all have importance and value, but you know, at the end of the day, there's, you know, the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL are the cream of the crop, and there is no hockey league like the NHL anywhere in the world. And so our strategy at Turner has been to be involved with premium, at the most premium sports content, and I think we've put together a portfolio that reflects that. And adding the NHL to that portfolio only enhances Turner Sports. And so, you know, though there may be places and parts where it's more popular, it's still the NHL, and that's what we're incredibly proud to be in business with.
All right. Now for Gary, and it's a little bit off topic, but obviously the playoffs are coming up, and there's still some uncertainty in Canada. So I was just wondering, where do you stand right now regarding the possibility of having those playoffs in Canadian cities, moving them in the bubble, and what factors will be playing in the league's decision?
The most important factor, as it has been either in the return to play or playing out this season, is the health and well-being of our players, our other personnel, and the communities in which we play. Where we play is going to depend on COVID, obviously. We hope to keep everybody healthy, and it's going to depend on government regulations in terms of where we're going to be able to travel, our players and our teams, and where we can't. And as we've done throughout for the last year plus, we're going to continually review and explore all of our options and maintain the flexibility to do whatever we have to do with whatever we're confronted with. And I think you've seen that throughout this season. We believe that the protocols we have in place have been effective, particularly when they're adhered to. Our players and other team personnel have been sensational for the most part, and we believe that we will complete the regular season and get into the playoffs. If we can't travel in Canada, either as among the provinces or from the US to Canada and back, we'll make whatever adjustments we have to do to get the playoffs completed. But obviously, as it has been, it's wildly unpredictable. I wouldn't say it's moment by moment, but it's probably day by day. And we're going to continue to execute the way we have for the last year.
Merci, Guillaume. Next question, we have time for 2 more, comes from Alex Silverman of Morning Consult. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, thanks a lot. This one's for the commissioner. Why wasn't it a priority for the league to have the Cup final on broadcast every year, like the NBA and MLB?
I am more than comfortable with TNT, which is in 90 million homes, which is almost the equivalent of any broadcast network. And as you look at what's happening to the various platforms for all content, content is being spread. It's not just on linear anymore. There are a myriad of digital platforms and services. And there's been a migration of major sports, whether it's conference finals in sports, whether or not it's college football championships. I think having yet another platform to distribute and reach our fans is perfectly consistent with the strategy we've been using and perfectly consistent with the evolution of what's happening with all content and particularly and including sports. I think, Jeff, you may want to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I would add, Alex, is we're going to crown the Eastern Conference champions in basketball in 2 months. We're gonna crown the league champions in baseball later this year. We're going to crown the national men's basketball champion next year in the Final Four on Turner. Just as the national college football champion is now crowned on ESPN. So I think that this is part of the continuing evolution. When we were at NBC, the games were sometimes on the network and sometimes on cable, and so I think that this is part of the evolution of sports and viewing consumption, and we're confident and excited that the viewers and the consumers will find it wherever it is.
Thanks, Alex. And the final question goes to Jabari Young of CNBC. Go ahead, Jabari. Jabari, do you have a question?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you. Go ahead.
Jeff, this is for you. Is this mission accomplished? Can you walk away now knowing that you delivered 4 major properties to Turner, and you guys have your future set up, HBO Max when they come around, but is this mission accomplished, or is it more to come?
For Turner Sports, Jabari, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and for you personally, is this what you envisioned, as you continue to transition to your next phase?
Yeah. So Jabari, look, I don't want to say on Turner Sports that we're ever gonna say it's mission accomplished. We're always going to be in the marketplace following our strategy, which is our commitment to premium sports content. And so, we're incredibly pleased with the rights that we do hold between the NHL and NBA and MLB and NCAA tournament and the match and golf, and so the Turner portfolio is incredibly significant, incredibly strong, and I think quietly Turner Sports is on par with anybody else out there, and I'm proud of that. So I don't want to say it's mission accomplished, because we're never not gonna look at something that is right and relevant. So I feel good about where we are, but we'll never rest on our laurels. And as far as I'm concerned personally, look, I'm here and continuing to drive, and we got a lot of work to do now as we get ready for this fall and the new season. It's first on Turner, so there's still plenty of work to be done.
Thanks, Jabari. Well, that's all the questions we have. Gary, thanks for taking the time. Jeff, thanks for taking the time, and thanks everyone else for joining us. A recording of this will be available very shortly on the NHL's media website. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.